All systems go.
Houston, we have takeoff.
You're listening to the Recovered Life Show, the show that helps people in recovery live their best recovered lives. And here is your host, Damon Frank.
And welcome back to the Recovered Life Show. Look, we all know the holidays are here, and here comes the drama. So I'm bringing on one of my favorite counselors today with us. Welcome back to the show, Kyle Miller, who's a licensed clinical professional counselor and also a clinical trauma professional from Nexus Counseling Services. Welcome back, Kyle. How you doing?
I'm good, Damon. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, thank you so much for being on the show again. And look, 'tis the season right now. We're in the middle of it. And the drama starts for a lot of people who are in mental health and addiction recovery. And I'm so glad you could join us today because, man, we are going to ask you some really great questions because people are worried about this. I just got to start off. What's the deal that brings out all the drama with the holidays? Why does this intensify so much?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would imagine that it's probably, different for every family. But we know everybody's a little stressed at this point in the year because we're all getting ready to be around family that we're not normally around, right? Your extended family is going to be around, or you may be around family that you don't even see all that often. So the tensions are just naturally raised a little bit higher. And I think it also, one of the things that I tell my clients and everyone that I talk to is that it's hardest to heal in your family of origin and your family in general because you're so emotionally invested in them and you're so emotionally invested in that being a good place. And also, you kind of go back into the patterns of the family. So it's the pattern that you came from, and now you're going back into it. If you've begun your own recovery or your own healing, it starts to look different, which can actually make it harder.
Yes. I think now we talk a lot about on Recovered Life about awareness, about, becoming aware and then becoming willing and then taking action. And I think so many people in recovery, especially early recovery, are aware that maybe there was stuff going on in their family that might not totally be healthy, but they can't, and they have these expectations that everybody's going to be in the same awareness that they're at. And that just doesn't happen all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. You and I were talking a little bit before we started about how when you go back into your family and it's like, wait a minute, why do I feel different now? It's starting to get a little bit more intense, because your family system hasn't changed, but you have changed. And if you've built the awareness of how your family's changed, then you're going to walk back into it, and you need some skills and some supports and some strategies to help you in order to maintain your sanity and your wellness during this holiday season.
Absolutely. And that's why we're so glad that you're here, because I think people need to check in and find out actually what's going on with them before they try to get into these situations, and it's so dangerous, especially for people in early recovery, because they can go, without a brake pad, it's metal to metal with the car. And the next thing that they know it, they're, drinking or using, and that causes problems. But I have to ask you the big $1 million question here, because I hear this from a lot of people that they don't catch the signs that drama is on the way, right? They just don't see them. They don't see the signs. What are some early warning signs if people are into this, right? They're meeting with the family and friends. What are some of the early warning signs that things might spiral into drama or conflict?
Yeah. That's a really good question. I think that is $1 million question. And building your own awareness of all of this is so important. And I think it's even more important for all of us to, if you're going into a family system that is really challenging for you, it's important for you to prepare before you actually go into this environment, almost assessing like what level, who are the people that are safe for me, who are the people that are going to, cause a little bit of rift. People want to talk about, like, or if they're just someone that's kind of pokes fun, or, like really assessing where are, and I'll be a little bit open with you, for me, it's my brother and my dad. I always know that I have to go in and be prepared because they don't have any empathy or understanding of my life circumstances. And so they just treat me as though I was always treated growing up, which is a huge trigger for me. And so it's really important that we're all preparing to go back into those environments. And like, if you've got a cousin, like, oh, this cousin feels really good, even setting something up with them up front, right? Hey, I may be hanging around you a lot tonight, just to, make things feel a little bit better for me. Or having someone, if you're in recovery, having someone who is a safe person for you to, that, like as a sober friend, right? Or bring someone with you, whatever it really takes.
I think I think too is one of the things that I felt early on when I was around people necessarily that were still going through their own issues. And I had recovery, Kyle, and I remember that certain events were super draining.
Hmm.
And I would feel I would feel almost like emotionally hungover in the morning. And sometimes people didn't do anything wrong. It's not that they were confrontational or there was anything. It was just that there's a lot of like internal conflict or things that are not said. And you also tapped into this whole thing about these roles, like you're talking about your family, that you play a role. And
Yeah.
how important is that? Because I think we have the expectation sometimes that you have to, I always say you have to meet people where they're at
Hmm.
because they might not change. They might always look at you like that. That just
Yeah.
because you're in recovery doesn't mean that dynamic is necessarily gonna change.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is important that we deal with people as they are, right? And so if you know you have a family member that just is an instigator or something like that, you need to think about how is it for me to interact with that person, um, and for yourself, just kind of what role do I play in my family? Are you a caretaker? Are you the scapegoat? Are you the one that just kind of the jester, maybe, that lightens everything up? Because once you start your healing process, you go in and you're like, whoa, I don't want to do that anymore because I've carried it for so long. I don't want to do that anymore. But these people in this room, many of them likely won't know that you want to shed that role. And they don't even know that it's your role because they haven't really thought about it in that way. And so you have to think for yourself, okay, I've changed some. How do I go into this and how do I handle this situation? Like, I'm an advocate for, actually, if you need to, set a time limit.
Mm.
Tell people I can only be here for a couple of hours because I have another thing that I have to go to, or I've got a sick kid at home and I need to make, I'm only going to be able to stay for a little bit. I don't care what it takes. It's managing like what is okay for you. But also saving, if you want to save that relationship, right? Um, and I apologize. I feel like that's stepped ahead a little bit. But
No, I think you're right on because I think a lot of people can't say no because
mhm,
what we talk about. I've never met an alcoholic. I've never met somebody who has been addicted to drugs that doesn't have codependence around them. There's typically codependence swirling around them, or they're also codependent. So
yeah,
and I think a lot of people don't understand, Colin, and I'd love for you to talk about this, is that there might have been people who were your biggest cheerleaders to get sober in your family. They were the ones that were pushing you. They were on the front lines. But now now that you're sober and you're not in trouble, right? You're not at risk, let's say, from that, and things are starting to come together. They don't feel they have a role because they're addicted to changing, their emotional state. They're addicted, to that as well. And it's very hard. So I find that these people will bring up past mistakes that you do or hurtful comments, and they were your biggest cheerleader because they don't have a role anymore.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I didn't think about it in those terms, but you're right. When you go back into that family environment, they see you a particular way because that's the way it's always been. Let's say you're the jester, you're the one that, or you're the caretaker. You make everything okay. If you're not stepping into that role, that is actually you're interrupting the family dynamic, and you're going to have awareness of it, but the people around you aren't. And so it can be irritating to people's nervous systems, right? They may be irritated with you. And when we get irritated and we don't have good coping skills, a lot of times we go to passive aggressive. We go to like, how can I pull this person back into the role that they've always played with not even knowing that that's what you're doing? It's just a pattern of behaviors. It's a pattern of communication. And so if you're I hate to say it this way, but I deal in truth, I deal in authenticity.
I love that.
You're carrying now the gift of healing and recovery, but you're also carrying the burden of being the person in the room who has that, right? If you're in a room where people aren't contributing to that growth that you have.
I love this. Now, we're going to take a quick little break from our sponsor, but when we come back, Kyle, we're going to dive in, and I want to go really in about how to actually do what you just said, because that is, it all sounds great, kind of until you actually have to do it.
Yes.
Then you're in the middle of it and you're like, oh my God, I am sucked into the drama here. So when we come back, Kyle is going to drop some really great nuggets for us about how we actually do this, how we set boundaries, how we communicate, how we can actually reduce the drama and start having some fun this holiday season. We'll be right back after this quick message. Are you feeling the holiday pressure? It's no secret the holidays can be tough, but you don't have to go it alone. At Recovered Life, we've built a sober TikTok community where we come together to share our breakthroughs and breakdowns. Whether you're sober curious, just starting out, or decades into sobriety, you'll find people who get it. Find and follow us on TikTok. Just search Recovered Life. We post daily updates on our live schedule, so you'll always know when to join the conversation. This season, let's stay connected, stay inspired, and most importantly, live your best recovered life. Follow us now on TikTok at Recovered Life.
Merry Christmas!
Step out of the shadows into the light. Find your tomorrow, start the fight. Recovered Life TV, see the change. Living your best life, it's within reach. Visit recoveredlife.tv today.
You're listening to The Recovered Life Show, the show that helps people in recovery live their best recovered lives.
And we're back with Kyle Miller, licensed professional counselor. We're talking about how do we reduce this family drama. Before the break, Kyle, we were talking about all of these things that it sounds great. Like you can rehearse them and you can do this in your mind. But then when you get there, it's like a whole different, it's like being a football player. You've never played football. You're running on it's like, I went over it in the locker room, but now what do I do? How do you do this? How do you go from someone who never set healthy boundaries to actually setting these healthy boundaries?
Yeah. That's a great question. And the first thing I think is expect it. Perfection isn't going to happen. right? And so just expect that things aren't going to go perfectly, because that will help you to feel more prepared when you go into that environment. So first, starting off, I would say it's really thinking about, and we started talking about this a little earlier, is preparing. Get yourself ready. Who are my safe people in this environment? Who are people that are going to trigger whatever comes up in me? Who are going to people that are going to take care of my growth and my my recovery? Or who are people who may be triggers for that? And then actually maybe even sitting down and writing it out and thinking, like, it's I'm not somebody who plans, but I will tell you the holidays bring out the planner in me, because it will help you to have a good time. If you have at least one other person in that environment to go to and you can sit with and feel calm in your body, that is going to make 100% difference in your experience of it. But the other thing is actually thinking through, like, what are you capable of, knowing that the environment likely isn't going to change, right? So this environment is what it is, it's what it's always been. And so I'm coming into it with a different level of knowledge. Are you someone that is okay with the smile and nod approach, right? When somebody's talking about really heated things, or something that you completely disagree with, can you smile and nod and just blow it off? If that's not what you can do, then possibly, removing yourself from the situation, excusing yourself to go to the bathroom, going to the kitchen for, some more to eat or a drink or something like that, or turning to someone next to you and just kind of bowing out of the conversation. The more inward coping strategies is really one of the things that's huge, is slowing down your breath and trying to just relax your body. And nobody has to see this, right? So if you just kind of let your shoulders drop, usually a lot of us carry tension in our shoulders and our neck. So just check that, and then try to loosen up your core. Let your abdomen get loose. Notice a lot of times when we're sitting, our abdomen is tight. And then just slow down your breathing, being intentional with your breath, and have longer out breaths than in breaths. Your out breath.
That is so
Yeah.
great. Like, really being in touch with the here and now too. I mean, so much of it is like,
Yes.
this is what happened in the past. This is future tripping, right? Like, we're not in the here and now, comfortable in the here and
Yeah.
now, which is what recovery is all about, being comfortable in the here and now. What about what about communication? Because we hear this a lot in our society about, you have to be a good communicator. You got to communicate everything. You got to communicate in a certain way. I find sometimes over communicating is really where the drama starts. Is a lot of the times we are not, and I love how you're saying the road plan here, like
Mm-hmm.
putting down, like, okay, this is kind of not necessarily an expectation, but a map of what could be achieved in during that holiday event. But this over communication with people in recovery, I see it a lot. They pick, Thanksgiving dinner to do the amends to grandma. It's just not the place to figure out huge family dynamics, in my opinion. It's a place to go,
Yes.
have a piece of pie, connect with people, enjoy the holiday with it. It's not about this over communication all the time.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And it's that big feeling that you get, like you're like, oh my gosh, I need to make amends now. And it's also helping yourself, like, know that this environment, and that's again preparing yourself up front, knowing that this environment isn't for me to have the amends or give the amends or ask for amends during this time. This is a time for me to connect with people where they are, where I am, just enjoy the time. And then, but this is something that's really important that I see a lot of people don't do, is taking a step back and saying, okay, that's not what this is for. I'm going to plan an amends with my grandmother next week, right? We're going to have, I'm going to meet her for lunch. I'm going to go over to her house, and I can have a private conversation with her. Because a lot of people, when you're trying to do a repair, I call it a repair, an amends, they're not ready for it. And so it feels like, oh, you're startling me. You're also triggering some of my history and some of the things that have happened that are overwhelming to my nervous system. And you're bringing that to light, possibly in front of, family. And, maybe they're not ready for it. And so it is always best, in my mind, to do those things one on one and prepare yourself for them and do it, so that you can do it in a more empathetic way. But I totally get the impulsiveness of it. That's where, when you talked about why are the holidays so tension filled, it's because we're all bringing everything with us. We're just not acknowledging it, right? So you walk in and you're tingling.
Absolutely. Instead of enjoying the moment and catching up with people, we do a thing with recovery this week, Shauna McKenna Vick and I, who's an interventionist, and we talk about our own recovery, and we talk
Mhm.
about this, and we're talking about setting these new traditions. And, so many people that are in recovery or even have, something that they're dealing with with mental health come from family who also have that. So a lot of the times there is a tradition of drama. It's like,
Mhm.
Aunt Betty's gonna, turn over the casserole at the end, and, Uncle Stu's gonna run out and huff, right? Like there is this tradition of drama or over drinking or
Yep.
abuse, like of people, and shaming people, all this kind of stuff. It's built into the traditions that we have. I mean, look at alcohol's built into all the I remember my first Christmas sober. I realized how many traditions were like, oh, we're going to have this drink at this time and this drink. It was embedded.
Yeah.
So we were talking about
Mhm.
new traditions, and she was talking about how she like wrote down a plan and said, you know what, this time I'm going to spend a half an hour with every single person in my family over 2 days and really ask them in depth, not just
Mm.
how's school going, how's work going, how's the weather, really find out something that's going on with them that they're interested in so she could have that connection with them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up because that's something that I work with a lot of people on is, these holidays they're a tradition for our society just in general. And uh, but do we know why we're participating in them? And do we have choice in how we're participating in them? And I think, when you're in addiction or mental health recovery or growth, it's you want to start taking control of your life, and you may start thinking about, well, I don't want to do holidays the way that we've always done them. And so you may want to take on having like we always have a Friendsgiving every year. And then I go see my family in a very small dose the day after. And that is something that over time my family has come to, understand and agree to. But also for Christmas, you can, manage where do I want to be and what's going to make me feel best about my experience in my family. Now, having said that, I also understand that a lot of people, the role that you've played in your family, that may not fit that role. And so dipping into that in small ways, but in your own time, taking a step back and saying, how do I want Christmas to look? Does it need to be the same that it's always been? Or how can we create traditions that actually support the growth that I'm going through?
I love that. You're so on to something because I think one of the things that we've been talking a lot about with Recovered Life lately is asking different questions. I love that question you just asked because it made me go to another place and say, like,
Mhm.
why are we doing it at this day and this time? And especially people that have divorce or separations in their family or distance, everything being, crammed into a small period of time brings so much
Yeah.
pressure and expense for people. Not everybody has the money to participate. They go into debt to participate in these things. And we've never really
Yeah.
asked that question. Why are we doing it like this? Like, does this work for us? No one, that's so great. No one really asked that question.
Yeah, that is something that it's actually relatively new for me, and I think it's really important because we want to understand, why are we celebrating this, right? If you are, if you're religious and this is, the birth of Christ, then you've got your reason, right? But if you're not one of those people, or if you're questioning or whatever it is, you have to figure out, what are we doing and why are we doing this? And as we get older, and more important, because I think we establish ourselves more and more as we get older, and then you start looking back and you're like, is this the life that I thought I was going to have? Is this the life that I actually wanted? And that's the same thing with, are these the experiences that I want to have moving forward, and for your family too, right? Like, if we can
Yes.
avoid someone drinking too much, and because we've been there for 6 hours and people are restless and there's nothing to talk about anymore and the football games are over, and whatever it is, like, let's not do that to ourselves. Like, how can we make it
I
so that
love
it
this.
works?
And you know what? Kyle, guys, is giving us permission to do this. So if I get any feedback, I'm having my family call Kyle.
There you go.
Any negative feedback, they're going to call you, Kyle. Look, I gotta dive into a really hard question here, as we wrap this up, because there are people who are listening here, and we've been going live, like the ad said, on TikTok a lot, and there are people who come from such extreme drama, such as extreme situations, that literally sometimes, and I've been asked this question, as somebody in recovery, is like, should I go and should I not go? And I have told people sometimes, I really think even with like having somebody with you, I really just don't think this is a good idea. It's just too risky, And if you can't, and they go, well, it's the annual Christmas Eve thing. Like, well, maybe you can go for a period of time, but you got to leave. Like, it's just not safe for you to do. And if you can't stay sober, you're not going to have any other experiences, in my opinion. You gotta get that physical sobriety side. Kyle, when do you tell people, and again, everybody is different, so you're not giving people individual advice here, but in general, when do you tell people, maybe you got to walk away this year, and this is not good for your physical and mental health?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say, and this is just my experience, and it's the people that I've worked with. If you're early in your work, I call it work. If you're early in your work or your growth or your recovery, then that is probably the most tenuous time. Because you don't have the coping skills. You haven't kind of dipped back into that environment and seen how it interacts with your your nervous system or your body, how you're feeling in that environment. And so it's a little bit, if it's your first Christmas or if it's your first holiday, that's a really tough time to step in. I'm not above saying I'm sick, like, or saying I've got something that I have to do. I think it's really important because it's the intention of why you're doing it, not like the avoidance of the actual event. It's, I need to make sure that I'm going to be here next year. I need to make sure that I am going to be healthy in my own life, in my interactions with the people that I love. And I need to take a step back from this one time. I'm hoping that it doesn't have to happen again. But also in that time, and because I'm biased, like, if you're working with a good therapist or a good coach or whatever, is really doing that work. And the other piece is, you're going to have to grieve it. You're going to have to grieve that I don't want to do this. I don't want to skip because it feels bad, but you're going to have to grieve that you have to do that so that your future is going to be even better.
Such great advice. I love that you also share your own struggles too, because I think a lot of the times we look at other families and we see the Instagram.
Yes.
We see the Instagram of their lives. Yeah. We see the absolute best when everybody's looking the best, has the best outfit on, the best event, but we're not seeing that everybody in every family has issues and struggles. And this whole idea of self-care, Kyle, about how you have to put your oxygen mask on first. And if you're unable to do that, you're not really going to be able to be there really for other people if you can't take care of yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's that I like the saying of you want to give everybody your overflow, right? You don't want to give from an empty cup, because then the reality is you're going to be resentful of them. If you go in and you push yourself, and I've been through this, I will tell you, and like people think that therapists have just arrived, right? Or counselors, that we're at the top of Maslow's hierarchy. We're human beings and we have our own stuff. We're just trained and we understand it better, which sometimes makes it harder. But but going in, like knowing yourself, going in and just making sure that it's about your intentions. It's not about what you're doing. It's about why you're doing it. And make sure it's about maintaining those good relationships, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It is. And it's about, really having your best recovered life. And I think working on this shows that you're in recovery, that you're taking it seriously and you're doing it. Kyle Miller, thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing your wisdom and your experiences with us, guys. We hope you have a drama-free holiday season. Please do it. Kyle's going to stay on after. If you guys go to the TikTok groups and you're there, I'm going to ask Kyle a couple other questions. You can access them there or going to Recovered Life TV. Thanks so much, Kyle, for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thanks, Damon. This has been a lot of fun. I'm really glad to do this. I shouldn't say fun. It's more, it's very heartening to be able to support people in this way. So thanks for having me on.
We appreciate you. And we're going to put links all about Nexus Counseling Services and Kyle in the show notes, guys, so you can find out more about him. An amazing, amazing counselor. And thank you so much for your service, Kyle.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Damon.
Hey, if you like this episode, think about supporting us by becoming a Recovered Life Plus member. At Recovered Life TV, we're not just delivering premium recovery resources, we're empowering you with the knowledge and tools that make a real difference in the quality of your recovery. By subscribing, you gain access to ad-free content, expert insights, exclusive video and audio segments, special projects, plus so much more, all while supporting our mission to spread the recovery message far and wide. Whether you're seeking to deepen your understanding or stay updated on the latest addiction and mental health recovery trends, Recovered Life Plus is for you. Subscribe now and start living your best recovered life. Just go to recoveredlife.tv and become a Plus member today.